Okay, Stephen, so the document the club is launching this week sets out our updated football philosophy and strategy. Can you just tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, it won't be a surprise to anyone that there's a strategic plan that sits in behind, everything that a fan would see either playing out in the pitch or any other sort of football decisions that we take. It's constantly under review, and I suppose we just wanted to take stock to see what direction we were taking in recent times, and where we could potentially improve things. So we set about doing an internal consultation that involved all of the coaching staff and all the support functions that feed into that. Obviously, that was headed up by Derek as well, and he had a huge influence on the final outcome of that. So, a review that took probably a few months, and with a view to which direction we wanted to take the football operation in the future. So that's everything that we see on the pitch and the support mechanisms around about that off the pitch.
So kind of clearly football's going through a number of challenges at the moment, as is wider society. Will this refreshed strategy prepare us for an ever-changing football landscape?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I'd like to think that we would have been well placed to deal with the challenges that we're faced with just now. I suppose we're in a relatively strong position in that most of our squad's already contracted for next season. We have looked at how we're going to recruit players in the future. We've looked at how we're going to create the pathway to get our homegrown talent into the first team as well. And I think when you look ahead 2 and 3 years, that's going to be a critical strategy for us, moving some of those players forward into the first team. So I think all of these things are going to have a significant bearing influence on how successful we can be in the future. And while I think what's going on slows us down a little bit, it certainly doesn't change the direction of travel for us in terms of opening up other recruitment markets, expanding our coaching offering, further developing that high performance environment, whether it's sports science, medical, and performance analysis. So while we might have been slowed down for a few months while we see ourselves through this challenging time, I think that strategic plan is going to be quite significant in how we deliver success on the pitch going forward.
And since it was launched a few years ago, how do you feel the Aberdeen investment has benefited the football operation?
Well, I think, like I suppose a number of the other income streams in the club, what we've been able to do is, over that same period of time, we've been able to invest into the football operation. So if you take the operation maybe 3 years ago, before DNA was in existence, I think we've expanded our full-time coach offering. We have expanded our sports science, medical and performance analysis teams. So the number of full-time staff that we've got operating in those areas has significantly increased. We've also been able to tool those people up with it might be some of the equipment that we're using, some of the online cloud systems we're using on the recruitment side, GPS tracking on the work of the players. So all of these things, I think, would have been much more difficult to branch out into these areas, make those investments without that Aberdeen support in the background.
And you've kind of touched on it there. So it's not only the first team that Aberdeen assists. There's also kind of improvements going on in the infrastructure behind the first team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the way from the academy up to the top of the tree with the first team players. So if I give you an example, and one thing we have done in the academy is opened up 5 development centres, and we've expanded their scope as well. So that's effectively feeder groups that feed into the under 10 squad. So we're talking 7, 8, 9-year-olds. and that's headed up by Liam McGarry in a new role that didn't exist, going back a year. That's proven already to be significantly fruitful. It's developed our relationships with boys clubs throughout the region, and it's allowed us to create that pathway from boys club football into our under-10 squad. And everything, all the data that we've been able to accumulate over a number of years of youth development tells us that the players that eventually come through into the first team squad have came in at that sort of age group. So it's important we give them that technical grounding to give them the best opportunity to become first team players. So that's an example how DNA has benefited the academy and how it will benefit our strategy to get homegrown players into the first team in the future.
One thing that kind of just stands out there when you're talking about the academy and the increased investment going into like the sports science has obviously been the move into Cormac Park. Just how much is moving into there with the modern facilities really just helped with the whole football side of things, from developing the younger players, as you mentioned there, right through to the first team as well?
Well, even from day one, it made a significant difference. With all the practical challenges we faced before we had the benefit of Cormac Park, with wasting time ferrying across the city in minibuses, training sessions cut short because we're on shared facilities. I think what we've been able to do is we've been able to get the training time that we need, increase the contact time with young players and senior players. We've been able to be more efficient in the work that we do in the gym, have larger groups training for longer periods of time. And obviously one of the things we're committing to do is try and make our players faster and stronger than they've been in the past. That is a significant strand of our strategy, particularly in youth development. We undertook a visit to Southampton a couple of years ago, and even our 10, 11, 12-year-olds, technically they could compete with the kids there, but physically there was a difference. So it was one thing we identified a couple of years ago that we wanted to work hard at. So Cormac Parks opened up that possibility to not only the first team and the development squad, but also every academy squad as well.
And one thing that's mentioned in the document, and I know that you've had a role to play in, is the style of play that you've kind of touched on as well: intensity, pace, and homegrown. Is that something that determines from first team recruitment right down to the player development programme?
Yeah, I mean, what any club would try to do is make sure that everything they're doing in developing young players marries into what you want to see on the pitch in the first team. And what we tried to do was we've taken a lot of learning from the last 6-7 years. When we've been able to put successful teams on the pitch, and Derek has to take a huge amount of credit for being able to deliver that. What we want to see is we want to see players that are going to come through that system that know the style that's going to be successful in an Aberdeen team. You've touched on a few of the things there. We want to play an exciting brand of football. Sometimes it doesn't happen game to game for a number of different reasons. But if we set out a plan for ourselves to achieve, and we can get the building blocks in there, that's going to affect, I suppose, all our decision making in terms of the markets we're looking for recruitment, the types of players we're looking to recruit, and that goes for the academy as well. What in terms of defining each of the players within that system, we're looking for both a technical excellence and a physical capacity as well to compete at the top level. So we're trying to marry up all these things and make sure we've got a cohesive system to get these young players through into Derek's squad.
You talk about player development coming through from the youth academy through to the first team. So it's kind of another thing that's stated in the document is that Aberdeen's had a homegrown player start in every competitive match since August 30th, 1947. It's obviously just a fundamental part of the club's plans in terms of building for the future.
Well, absolutely. And what we want to see going forward is not just one homegrown talent featuring in a starting 11. We want to be able to increase that. I think over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had an average of about 4 starting games. That tailed off slightly last year. I think the average was 3 per game. And we want to try and pick that up to achieve the 4 again. That won't be any mean feat. We still have to get the players to a level where they're able to not just get into that squad or make the odd appearance, but to cement their position in the team. And obviously, part of the strategy beyond that is when we look at the sort of player life cycle at Aberdeen, is we want to build a value in the squad. So we're going to be able to build a value by giving young players the opportunity, a platform for them to perform. And if we can help them achieve what they also want to achieve, then hopefully further down the line we can attract clubs coming and bidding for our players, and that then helps us reinvest back in the football operation and continue the cycle.
Excellent, Stephen. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.